What if I told you that a chicken farmer with a failing heart didn't just beat Ferrari, he humiliated them on the world's biggest stage? And I'm not talking about some Hollywood fantasy, this actually happened. This is the story of Carroll Shelby, a man who doctors told to stop racing or die, but instead, he built cars that made the entire automotive world bow down in respect. Picture this scene, June 1966, Le Mans, France. The most prestigious, most grueling race on planet Earth. Ferrari had dominated this race for years. They were untouchable. Unstoppable. The kings of motorsport. Until one American cowboy showed up with a team of misfits and a car built in what the arrogant Europeans mocked as a backyard garage operation. What happened next shocked everyone. Ferrari didn't just lose. They were absolutely destroyed. 1, 2, 3, American Ford GT40S crossing that finish line in formation while Enzo Ferrari watched his empire crumble in real time. But here's the part that will blow your mind. This victory almost never happened. Shelby nearly quit 3 times during development. His best driver almost died multiple times testing the car. Ford executives wanted to fire him and cancel everything. The odds were completely stacked against him. So how did a dying man with a bad heart and limited resources pull off what's considered one of the greatest upsets in racing history? How did he beat factory teams with unlimited budgets? Stay with me, because what you're about to discover will completely change how you see passion, determination, engineering, and the American dream. This is Carroll Shelby's story, and I promise you've never heard it told like this before. Born in 1923 in Leesburg, Texas, Carroll Hall Shelby wasn't handed a silver spoon, he was handed a shovel and told to clean the chicken coops. While other kids dreamed of becoming cowboys or astronauts, young Carroll was actually living the harsh reality of rural farm life. Dirt poor, working endless hours on his family's chicken farm, breathing dust, fighting heat, wondering if this monotonous existence was all that life had to offer him. The poverty was crushing. The isolation was suffocating. But deep inside this skinny Texas kid, something burned hot. Something restless. Something that absolutely refused to accept an ordinary, forgettable life. When World War II erupted and changed everything, Shelby immediately enlisted and became an Air Force flight instructor and test pilot. Finally, he experienced speed. Finally, he felt real adrenaline coursing through his veins. Finally, he discovered purpose beyond farm animals. Flying those combat aircraft taught him 2 absolutely critical lessons that would define his entire life. First, fear is just information, just data to be processed and used. And second, precision under extreme pressure is what separates the survivors from the statistics, the legends from the forgotten. After the war ended, he returned home to Texas, back to those damn chickens, back to that suffocating small-town life that now felt even smaller after he'd seen the world and tasted something bigger. But everything had changed inside him. He'd felt what it meant to push machines to their absolute limits. He'd experienced the razor's edge between control and catastrophe. One fateful day, someone invited him to watch a local dirt track race. That's all it took. Just one race. One afternoon. Shelby stood there completely mesmerized as engines screamed bloody murder and tires squealed in protest. Right then, watching those fearless drivers battle door-to-door for position, something fundamental clicked inside his brain. This wasn't just racing. This was aerial combat without the aircraft, pure strategy, raw courage, and incredible skill compressed into velocity and violence. The racing driver. What happened next absolutely shocked everyone who knew him. This poor chicken farmer started winning races. Not just winning small local events, we're talking national championships against drivers with serious money and factory backing. Shelby wasn't the richest driver on the grid. He definitely wasn't the most well-connected or politically savvy. His equipment was often second-hand and barely holding together. But he possessed something that money absolutely cannot buy, an almost supernatural, instinctive ability to read a car's limits perfectly and push right to that knife's edge without crossing over into disaster. By the late 1950s, Carroll Shelby had become America's racing golden boy, the driver everyone wanted on their team. European factory teams started calling with serious offers. Then in 1959, he achieved the impossible. He won the brutal 24 hours of Le Mans driving for the prestigious Aston Martin team, becoming only the second American in history ever to achieve this incredible feat. Just imagine that singular moment for a second. Standing on that famous podium at Le Mans, champagne spraying everywhere, massive crowds roaring their approval, watching the American flag slowly rising while stunned European teams stood below in uncomfortable silence. This dirt-poor Texas farm boy had just conquered what's considered racing's Mount Everest, the ultimate test of driver and machine. He was 36 years old, at the absolute peak of his physical and mental powers, and the entire racing world was his playground. Then his own body viciously betrayed him without warning. Sharp, stabbing chest pains during a race sent him to specialists. Hospital visits became frequent. Medical tests revealed devastating news. The diagnosis hit like a physical sledgehammer to his chest: severe heart condition, dangerous angina, potentially fatal if he continued. The doctors were absolutely crystal clear with their prognosis: stop racing immediately, Carroll, or you won't live to see 40 years old. Most men would have been completely destroyed by this cruel news: depression, anger, bitterness at having their dream violently ripped away right at its absolute pinnacle. But Carroll Shelby wasn't most men. Now picture him in early 1961, sitting alone in a tiny, cramped California garage, frantically sketching wild ideas on cocktail napkins, surrounded by skeptical mechanics who seriously wondered if their eccentric boss had completely lost his mind under the stress. His vision sounded absolutely absurd to everyone. Take a lightweight, nimble British sports car body and somehow jam a massive, fire-breathing American V8 engine into it. Think about the automotive landscape then. The British manufactured elegant, sophisticated sports cars that handled beautifully through corners but had absolutely no straight-line power. Meanwhile, Americans built powerful muscle cars that rocketed forward in straight lines but couldn't navigate a simple turn without killing their drivers. Shelby wanted both strengths combined. Every expert said completely impossible. The physics simply wouldn't allow it. The chassis would literally tear itself apart. The weight distribution would be absolute suicide. One by one, British companies politely declined his increasingly desperate calls. American manufacturers thought he was utterly wasting their valuable time with fantasies. But Shelby was relentless, obsessive, impossible to discourage. He finally convinced AC Cars in England to ship him their lightweight AC Ace body after weeks of persistent negotiations. Then he boldly walked into Ford's headquarters and pitched them with pure confidence: "Give me your powerful V8 engines, and I'll make you racing legends and sell cars you never dreamed possible." Ford executives were intrigued but extremely cautious and skeptical. This eccentric guy wanted to compete against Corvette, against the mighty Ferrari, against well-established giants with decades of experience. With what exactly? A handshake and a fever dream? But something about Shelby's burning intensity, his unshakable confidence, his detailed vision convinced them to take a chance. They agreed to supply engines on a trial basis. On February 2, 1962, in that modest workshop in Venice, California, the very first Shelby Cobra roared to life for the first time. The sound was absolutely biblical, like a refined British accent screaming obscenities with a raw American Southern drawl. Mechanics instinctively stepped back, simultaneously half terrified and half mesmerized by this mechanical beast. Let me paint you a vivid, detailed picture of exactly what the Cobra did to professional racing and why it became an instant legend. Imagine you're a confident Ferrari factory driver in 1963, sitting in your million-dollar machine, backed by your enormous factory team with unlimited resources, completely confident in your Italian engineering superiority that had dominated for decades. Then suddenly you hear it behind you, that absolutely unmistakable, aggressive roar that sounds like thunder and fury combined. You nervously glance in your rearview mirror and see this raw, angry-looking, almost primitive roadster rapidly gaining on you despite your best efforts. Pure panic sets in. You desperately push your precious Ferrari harder, redlining everything, using every trick you know. It doesn't matter one bit. The Cobra violently blasts past you like you're completely standing still, parked on the side of the track, its massive engine thundering like approaching storm, its wide rear tires smoking and screaming in protest. That humiliating scene happened race after race after race across America and Europe. The 289 Cobra was incredibly quick and nimble, but the legendary 427 Cobra? That machine was essentially a street-legal rocket ship with wheels barely attached. With 425 raw horsepower crammed into a car weighing almost nothing at all, it could hit 60 miles per hour in under 4 seconds, and this was in 1965. Modern million-dollar supercars still struggle to beat that number today. But here's what made Shelby fundamentally different from every other car builder in history: he didn't just want track success and trophies. He wanted regular, everyday people to actually experience this insanity themselves. So he boldly sold Cobras directly to the public at relatively affordable prices. Doctors, lawyers, dentists, accountants, suddenly ordinary Americans could actually own a genuine race car that had won real professional races. It was completely democratic performance, accessible speed. No longer was velocity and excitement reserved exclusively for millionaires and factory-backed professional teams. For about $5,000, you could own a certified giant killer that embarrassed cars costing 5 times more. Section 6. Ford's Call, the Ferrari Challenge. The year is 1963, and Henry Ford II, one of the most powerful and influential men in America, has just been publicly and utterly humiliated in the worst possible way. He tried to buy Ferrari, the entire company, lock, stock, and barrel. Serious negotiations went extremely far with lawyers involved. Detailed contracts were actually drafted and ready for signatures. Then, at the absolute last moment, Enzo Ferrari arrogantly walked away from the deal, essentially and publicly calling Ford's cars boring, soulless machines built by accountants and bean counters, not true artists who understood racing passion. Henry Ford II was absolutely furious beyond description. Not just angry, personally destroyed and humiliated. His ego, his company's hard-earned reputation, everything he'd built suddenly questioned by this arrogant Italian who acted like royalty. So Ford declared total war. Not with lawyers or business deals or corporate maneuvering, but on the racetrack where it truly mattered. He wanted to beat Ferrari at Le Mans, the single most important and prestigious race in the entire world, the race that Ferrari had completely dominated for years like their personal kingdom. Ford immediately threw essentially unlimited money at this problem. They designed and built the GT40, an absolutely stunning mid-engine race car that looked like it came from the future. They hired the very best engineers they could poach from Europe with enormous salaries. They tested relentlessly at tracks worldwide, sparing no expense whatsoever. Then they confidently went to Le Mans in 1964 expecting victory and failed catastrophically beyond anyone's worst nightmares. Every single Ford GT40 retired from the race with mechanical failures. Not one finished. Complete embarrassment on the world stage. Then 1965 arrived with renewed hope? Exact same devastating story. More failures, more wasted millions, more international humiliation. Meanwhile, Ferrari kept winning with seemingly effortless superiority, and Enzo Ferrari kept smiling smugly at Ford's pathetic attempts. Ford executives were desperately panicking now. They'd spent tens of millions and had absolutely nothing to show except definitive proof that maybe Ferrari was actually right, maybe Americans really couldn't build proper race cars after all. Section 7. GT40 Development, Failure to Success. Shelby took complete control in 1965, and immediately absolutely everything about the program changed overnight. He brought in Ken Miles, a brilliant but temperamental British driver and natural mechanical genius who understood cars at almost a molecular, instinctive level. Together, they systematically tore apart Ford's entire corporate approach to racing. The GT40 was beautiful, powerful, technologically advanced, but fatally fragile where it mattered most. It kept breaking down catastrophically because it was over-engineered, too complex, with too many sophisticated things that could fail at high speed over 24 absolutely brutal hours of continuous racing. Shelby's approach was revolutionary: simplify everything possible. He strengthened the weak points that kept failing. He tested, watched it break, fixed it properly, then tested again and again. But progress was agonizingly slow and painful. Every single test session revealed frustrating new problems nobody had anticipated. Brakes catastrophically failing at 200 miles per hour. Transmissions violently exploding without warning. Suspension suddenly collapsing under racing stress. And the crashes, absolutely terrifying, violent crashes that nearly killed their best drivers multiple times during testing. Ken Miles almost died during one test when a brake failure sent him spinning into barriers at horrific speed. He walked away severely bruised and absolutely furious, but thankfully he walked away breathing. They didn't have that luxury at Le Mans. One mistake there meant certain death, not a second chance. Ford executives kept constantly calling, demanding immediate results, threatening to shut down the entire expensive program. Shelby fought them off persistently, desperately begging for more time, more trust, more patience. Meanwhile, he and Miles worked absolutely punishing 18-hour days, sleeping on cots in the workshop, obsessing over every tiny detail. Shelby's serious heart condition was worsening noticeably under the stress. The pressure, the endless work, the physical toll. Doctors warned him sternly again about his health. He completely ignored them. This wasn't about personal health anymore. This was about proving that American ingenuity, determination, and refusal to quit could overcome smug European superiority. 1966 Le Mans, historic victory. June 18, 1966, Circuit de la Sarthe, France. The entire automotive world gathered for what everyone knew would be the most anticipated and dramatic Le Mans in racing history. In one corner, Enzo Ferrari, the unquestioned king of motorsport, confident, almost bored by the absolute certainty of yet another dominant victory for his red cars. In the other corner, Carroll Shelby, the American upstart with everything to prove, fighting the biggest and most important battle of his entire life. The race started precisely at 4 p.m. with traditional running start. 24 hours of absolute hell awaited everyone. For the first several tense hours, Ferrari led comfortably as expected. Their cars were quick, proven, dominant as always over the years. But Shelby had developed a patient strategy, consistency and reliability over flashy speed. Let them burn themselves out early, he calmly told his nervous drivers. We'll still be running strong at the end when it matters. Hour 5 arrived. A leading Ferrari suddenly retired. Catastrophic mechanical failure. Hour 8, another Ferrari gone in smoke. Then another one shortly after. Meanwhile, the blue and orange GT40S just kept circulating lap after lap, relentless as hunting sharks. By midnight, the absolutely unthinkable was actually happening. Ford was leading Le Mans. Shelby couldn't celebrate yet though. Le Mans has cruelly destroyed many confident leaders in the final brutal hours. His heart medication sat completely unused in his pocket. Pure adrenaline was the only drug he needed now. Ken Miles was driving like a man absolutely possessed, pushing the GT40 to its absolute limits but never stupidly beyond. This was pure poetry in motion, man and machine in perfect harmony, executing a careful plan conceived in a modest California garage, financed by Detroit corporate money, driven by pure Texas stubbornness and pride. Dawn finally broke over France. Ferrari was completely finished. All their cars had retired. Now it was just Ford against the clock and their own reliability. The final hour slowly approached. 3 GT40S were miraculously still running perfectly, all in the top positions. That historic victory at Le Mans changed absolutely everything overnight in the automotive world. Shelby didn't just win a race, he completely rewrote automotive history and American racing credibility. Suddenly, American engineering was genuinely respected worldwide by Europeans who'd mocked it for decades. But Shelby wasn't remotely done yet. In 1965, even before the Le Mans triumph, Ford had asked him to work his magic on another car, the Mustang. The Mustang was selling extremely well but was seen as a cute secretary's car, pretty but not remotely serious performance. Shelby took that cute little Mustang and completely transformed it into the GT350, a street-legal race car that terrified and thrilled in equal measure. Upgraded suspension, significantly more power, stripped interior, aggressive styling that screamed performance. It was a Mustang that could actually fight Corvettes head-to-head and win convincingly. Then came the legendary GT500, with its absolutely massive 428 cubic inch engine. This monster didn't just drive normally, it announced itself loudly, demanded attention, refused to be ignored anywhere. These Shelby Mustangs became instant cultural icons, appearing in movies, music videos, dreams of teenagers across America. Even today, just mention Eleanor and car enthusiasts' eyes immediately light up with recognition. But Shelby's damaged heart was failing again under the years of stress. By the 1970s, his heart was giving out. He stepped back from daily operations, though he never truly stopped working and innovating. Then, in 1990, he received a heart transplant at age 66. Most men would immediately retire to peace and quiet. Shelby got a second heart and went straight back to building extreme machines. He helped develop the Dodge Viper in the 1990s, another raw, powerful, completely unapologetic American supercar. He mentored young engineers generously, sharing decades of hard-won knowledge, ensuring his philosophy survived beyond his life. When Carroll Shelby finally died in 2012 at age 89, the entire automotive world mourned genuinely. But his legacy? That lives forever. Shelby American still builds incredible cars today, still pushes boundaries, still carries that same rebellious spirit. So what can we truly learn from Carroll Shelby's absolutely incredible journey from chicken farmer to racing legend? First and most importantly, your humble background doesn't remotely determine your future potential. A poor chicken farmer became a racing legend who changed history. Second, when life cruelly takes away one dream, build another even bigger one. Shelby couldn't race anymore, so he built race cars instead and achieved even more. Third, and most importantly for everyone watching, passion and creativity will always eventually beat unlimited budgets and corporate bureaucracy. Ferrari had decades of racing dominance, essentially unlimited resources, and the very best engineers in all of Europe. Shelby had a small dedicated team, a modest California garage, and an absolutely unshakable belief that impossible is just an opinion, not a fact. He definitively proved that American ingenuity isn't about having the most money or the fanciest engineering degrees from prestigious universities. It's about refusing to quit when absolutely everyone says you should, finding creative solutions when problems seem completely unsolvable, and having the raw courage to challenge giants even when you're just one determined person with a crazy idea nobody believes in. Carroll Shelby didn't just build fast cars, he built an inspiring legacy that reminds us that one determined individual can change an entire industry forever. So here's my direct question for you watching right now: what's your personal Le Mans? What's that impossible challenge everyone around you says you can't achieve? Because if a dying chicken farmer can humiliate Ferrari on the world stage, what's honestly stopping you from achieving your dreams? Drop a comment below telling me what challenge you're going to tackle next. And if this story genuinely inspired you, smash that like button and subscribe, because we've got many more incredible stories of people who refuse to accept impossible. Remember Shelby's powerful words: I don't design cars. I design dreams. Now go design yours.